Hello everyone, welcome back to the RK Garage. We are now gonna cover coilovers, which is the end all be all. Everybody must go to coilovers because that's what everybody strives to have, right?
That's a tough sell.
So, I mean, that's what everybody tells me on the internet. Everybody tells me, coilovers, coilovers. Oh, you're going coilovers. When are you going coilovers? And that's literally all I hear.
There's some good applications for coilovers and some not so good applications for coilovers.
Right. So the first thing on coilovers you have to take into consideration is your use of your vehicle.
A lot of things. I mean, you know, the mounting bracket choices, you know, the cutting, the grinding, the welding, anything else associated with mounting them into your vehicle. But the usage, 100%, you know, the way you guys use that, it's for the front, it's perfectly fine. Your static loading condition for the most part.
Right.
You don't have to worry about a lot of weight changes. You know, the spring and shock ratio should be pretty well dialed for that application. You know, but tell me about all the other usage you use with that.
Right. Okay, so what he's talking about is running a coilover on the front of our vehicle, because the way we treat it could actually work out just fine. But that's because the front of your vehicle has a static weight. Now we have the Hemi in it, we have our heavy bumper, we have our winch. Once we dial in the spring rates and the shock tuning on the front end, that is going to stay, everything up there is going to stay the same, and then the coilover will be dialed in and never change. But we can't really run a coilover in the rear of our vehicle. One, the location of where it would mount to the frame and the axle, unless you got into extreme modifications, you're not really putting it in the stock locations. It's not going to really work the right way in the stock location. And, hold on. And the biggest thing is that we load and unload our Jeep a lot. When we're traveling, we're completely loaded down, hundreds and hundreds of pounds of weight, sometimes including a trailer with the side-by-side. A coilover cannot run that kind of weight loaded and then me just unload everything and it be okay. You can't tune for that.
You would dramatically be changing spring rates and dampening rates of a coilover assembly to be able to carry all those different loading conditions.
Right.
For example, if you would have started out with coilovers on it when you first got it, you know, with the V6 and everything else, you would have had a different spring
Stock
rate.
bumper, no winch.
Would have been a completely different spring and shock setup than what you have now with the Hemi application.
So what we're getting at is coilovers are very, very, very touchy when it comes to weight. If you have a vehicle, it's a race vehicle or a vehicle that's always stripped out, you never have, I mean, just even going from a hard top to a soft top and then throwing your spare tools in the back and then a 40-inch tire on the back.
That's a big weight change.
You're in a big different spring rates.
Yep, absolutely.
So if you're constantly changing the weight of your vehicle, a coilover is not really for you unless you're willing to pull that coilover off and change spring rates all the time, right?
Yeah, you have to be willing to take a lot of extra labor and time into your setups and almost even log your setups for your given conditions so you know what you're doing. I mean, you've mentioned basically 3 different spring setups for how you use your vehicle.
Right. Something as simple as even going, hey, my vehicle always stays as it is, but then they say, oh, I'm going to throw a trailer on because I'm going to take my side-by-side or my four-wheeler down to, you know, out with me this time. It's going to ride. It's not going to ride right.
No, it's going to ride like you're staring at the sky.
Right.
You know, the back end's going to drop. You know, you're not even going to see the road.
So you're right. So we're just wanting to barely touch on this in the 101. We definitely have a lot more information over in the advanced course if you want to know more. But I kind of wanted to throw it out there for you guys that all these people yelling coilovers, I feel like it's like a parrot effect.
It really is. I mean, it's, you know, yes, they're blingy, they're cool, but the fact is the functionality of a very good coil and a very good shock combination can perform as good as a coilover in almost every application.
Right. So getting the right coil spring in the rear of our vehicle with a properly tuned shock, I will be able to do all these things, have it loaded, unloaded. Sure, there'll be compromises. It might ride a little soft, fully loaded. It might ride a little stiff if I'm completely empty, but I can dial in that middle and then just have to deal with a little one way or the other.
And your height changes won't be huge in the back. You know, you might go up or down plus or minus an inch, where this is going to drop or raise significantly.
Okay, and so since we're on the 101, let's at least just go over what a coilover is versus your coil and spring. And the word coilover is exactly that. Yep. It's a coil over the shock.
Yep, absolutely, and it's very simple. You know, you get adjustability by rates. You typically have a top spring and a bottom spring. some transition rings, or others call them lockout.
Okay, so yeah, so when you just said that, so that's something that I haven't, I've never dove into that. Coilovers that I run are generally just are on cars. It's just one spring,
single spring.
So I have no lockout. So what exactly, is that just a preload on the first one, or what?
No, so your lockout, you can dial it in. You have a preload as well, which is your top,
the top,
which sets your ride height and your preload on your coil stack. But what will actually happen is this compresses. You can actually dial in these transition rings to stop on the spring slider to lock out one spring rate and go to the next spring rate. This is an advanced tuning option for coilovers.
Okay, so if it's advanced, that'll be in our advanced
Absolutely.
course. All right, so we can kind of show that, we'll have that in the advanced course for you. So that's basically just touching base on the coilover, what it is, why you need it, why we don't need it or can't use it, other than in the front.
Again, it's the consumer has to pick what's going to function best for them and do their research to know how they use their vehicle and what's going to work.
Right. Here, 2 seconds. So, spring, shock, coilover.
Yep, basically.
That's why it's called a coilover, is because the shock is in the middle, but it's a lot more advanced. There's because then from there you could have bypasses and internal bypasses, external bypasses, which all is in the advanced section.
Yep.
But let's touch just a little bit more on the whole coilover, because I hear it, and I know people they're expensive and people want the best. And from what I've always heard is coilovers are the best. But it's got to be best for what? Because I know people want this because it looks really rad. It does. It looks super awesome under the Jeep. You put them on and you got these cool coilovers hanging off the back axle, and when you're driving down the road, people powder coat the springs colors and it matches your Jeep, and all that's super neat.
Coilovers are just like a coil spring and shock, as shown. That is a combination that can be tuned. A coilover has valving and springs on it. That's a mechanical and hydraulic tuning assembly or marriage. Those greatly affect ride and the tuning package.
Right. So with coilovers, it's something if you're into tuning, you want to tune it, you want to play with it. We wouldn't really recommend coilovers to somebody that's just using their vehicle on the street. You could.
You could.
You definitely could.
If the guy wants to spend a lot of money and say he's cool, that's what he's going to do.
And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. If you have the money, you want to do it, but you do have to keep in mind that you do have to service coilovers. They're not a set it and forget it type of thing. You've got to have them rebuilt. They're just more of a high performance application.
Absolutely. They work great for race cars, which is maybe why everybody goes in that direction, because they see it on the highest applications for off-road.
Right. You don't see many people running just a spring and shock on stuff that you're
rarely
launching off of dunes and running 100 miles an hour through the desert and whoops and stuff. A spring and shock can.
It can, but it's not going to be
as
tunable or ideal as a coilover. The coilover gives you a nice package to be able to tune all those applications and have a nice dedicated rig for just doing that.
Right.
Yep.
But expecting on-road compliance and soft and plush on-road, but then expecting it to be able to take whoops at 89 miles off-road.
There's going to be a compromise.
There's got always a compromise.
And the usage of your vehicle, like you mentioned, with multiple different loading conditions, and different setups that would be required, they are tedious on that end of things.
Right. And again, with the weight, it really comes down to the weight on this. So say you have your package that you carry in the back. You have whatever you take with you, your tools and your recovery gear, and you're like, okay, I can go with coilovers. But then you decide to take two of your 200-pound friends with you, and now you throw 400 pounds in the back seat.
Yep.
Guess what?
you're at least adjusting your preload, or you're going to be staring at the sky again.
So it's a constant.
Absolutely.
It's a constant tuning thing. You have to be willing to mess with it. And there are people that love it. There are
100%.
I've got a friend that he has like 60 springs in his garage, and he's like, what's my goal this weekend? I'm going to go high speed, and he'll set it up.
Yep.
And then he's going to go, I'm going rock crawling, whatever, and he sets it up. So all that, I know we drew that out a little while for 101, but the thing to take away from this is coilovers isn't the end-all be-all. Even though it's a parrot thing, I hear everybody say it, it's really not the best for everybody at all.
Not for every given condition, for sure.
Right.
Yep.
And that's what it is. It's more specific.
Exactly. Very specific.
So I hope this answers a little bit more. I know I've heard it forever, and I've been wanting coilovers, and then once we started chatting, He's like, dude, no, like not with what you do. But what we will do is we will set it up with a good spring and shock combination that actually meets my needs. And that's all what this is get you guys the information so you know exactly, you know, how to build your vehicle right the first time.
And then definitely check out the advanced course for some more information, because we'll dive into spring rate calculation, and actually how to set them up and understand what they're doing in your vehicle.
All right, well, thanks for joining us on this lesson on coilovers.